So it caught on, and like doctors repeated it and everybody repeated it, and nobody actually studied it. No, but there was no research on it at all. So somebody finally, after like 30 years, did some research, and they're like, well, actually, it's not a good idea to overhydrate. It's not a good idea to drink so much water that you deplete your sodium. And what happens is your kidneys have a concentration gradient, and you lose some of that concentration gradient. You lose the ability to concentrate urine. So I have people that come in and they're just like so tired, and like, I'm tired all the time. Why? I don't sleep at night. Why not? Because I have to get up 5 times to pee. And I'm like, why are you getting up 5 times to pee? Well, could it be because I'm drinking a gallon of water every day? Yeah. So what happens is when the kidney can't concentrate urine, the when you lie down, your pituitary gland makes something called antidiuretic hormone. And that hormone stops the kidneys from making urine so that you can sleep all night. Well, but if your kidneys don't have the ability to concentrate urine because you've been drinking so much water and you're so sodium depleted that you have to get rid of all this extra water, then you're going to be like all night long. You're going to be getting up, filling your bladder, and getting up again and filling your bladder again. So so how much water should you drink, and what is hydration anyway? So let's talk about hydration and what it is. Hydration is not, or dehydration is not a lack of water, and hydration is not just getting enough water. Your kidneys, if you drink a whole bunch of water, your kidneys will just pee it out. I don't need that. We're good. And then and you'll pee out all the water. And there's a lot of waste products that go with it and everything. So people say, well, maybe it's a good idea to just drink water until your urine runs clear all the time so that it's never concentrated. Well, that's not a good idea. Then you lose the ability to concentrate urine. So hydration is a mixture of three different things. One is an adequate amount of water. Another one is an adequate amount of sodium, salt, and another one is an adequate amount of potassium, salt. And of course, there's a lot of other electrolytes that enter into that factor, but those are the three major ones. If you have enough potassium in your diet, then you will have enough intracellular volume. The inside your cells are going to be nice and tight and packed, right? And they're going to things are going to function. There's going to be, plenty of water in there. Your cells are nice and plump. If you lose potassium, if you're not getting enough potassium, then your cells become crenated like raisins, and they just and they shrink down, and things do not function as well in a raisin environment than they do in a grape environment. So these nice plump, like grapes cells are nice. So that's getting enough potassium. And then if you get enough sodium, then you'll have enough blood volume in your blood. And that's the circulation. If you don't have enough sodium, then you don't get enough circulation because you have less volume. And so your blood vessels are more constricted, and there's areas of your body that aren't getting as much blood flow as they need because you don't have the volume to keep that up. So getting enough sodium. So for years, people have said, doctors have told us, oh, avoid sodium. Bad news. Why? Because it raises your blood pressure. Well, it turns out that low sodium diets are as bad for heart disease as high sodium diets. And so all of the research that's been done on sodium is when, like in Finland, they did this really great study where they put everybody on a low sodium diet. They replaced all of their salt shakers with salt replacement, so sodium replacement stuff. And these are potassium and magnesium salts that people are putting on their, steaks and fries and all that stuff. And you know what? People got better. Their blood pressure went down. They had less heart disease. It was really an amazing study, and you'd think advertise it more. But it's one of the things that shows, oh, a low sodium diet is really good for you. Well, guess what? The diet wasn't really low in sodium, but it was higher in potassium and magnesium, which are common deficiencies. And because it was higher in potassium and magnesium, the blood vessels were more dilated, the cells worked better, and everything functioned better because they were getting more of what they needed, not because they were getting less sodium. So, you have to be careful with studies, especially in people, because there are so many factors involved, confounding factors you're trying to control for one thing, but there's a lot of other things going on outside of that mess up your study. So the idea of hydration is to have sufficient, enough. That's what you need, is enough. Enough what? Well, enough water. So how much water is enough? Well, you know what? If you're thirsty, you don't have enough. You need some water. Some people say, well, I never get thirsty. Well, you probably have excess water all the time. And that's not uncommon. There are a lot of people with excess water. I have so many people come into my office. Someone yesterday was like drinking himself silly, and his legs are filling up with water. And I'm like, dude, you have 3+ pitting edema in your legs. All that water is just running down and like swelling up your ankles. You got to get rid of all that water. And he said, well, my doctor gave me a diuretic. Should I take that? Okay. What's the purpose for a diuretic? It's to make you dehydrated. That's all it does. It stops your kidneys from holding on to water. And so you pee out all this extra water. And it is extra, by the way, to make you dehydrated. So your other option is, for heaven's sakes, don't drink so much. The medications that are diuretics cause problems. Some of them cause diabetes. You don't want to take the medications. A much, much better way to do it is to drink when you're thirsty. Number 2, exercise regularly. If you don't get exercise, you don't get your blood vessels dilated, you don't circulate, your circulation isn't as good, and your kidneys don't keep your electrolyte balances as well. So exercise is an important part of hydration. You wouldn't think that, but sweating is an important part of releasing some of those extra salts, for example, like sodium salts. And saunas can be very helpful. And then, so drink sufficient water. Oh, wait, I didn't say how much was enough. So probably a quart a day-ish is usually about enough. But if you're thirsty, then drink a little more. And if you're not so thirsty, drink a little less. But somewhere in the range of a quart to 2 quarts a day is usually 2 quarts, kind of a maximum. But you don't have to measure how much water you drink if you say, gee, I'm thirsty. And sometimes you may find this, a lot of people have told me this is true, that when people say, I'm hungry, it's because they don't have saliva, or they need saliva. And something sweet will stimulate saliva. Well, instead of eating something sweet like a fruit or something like that, just drink water. And if you drink some water and you go, that relieves that hunger, and it's actually thirst. It's kind of funny, my wife, when my young son, he's 4 years old. Well, when he was 4 years old, he would say, I'm hungry. And she'd say, no, you're not, you're tired. No, I'm hungry. No, you're not, you're tired. Just sit there for a minute, and he'd fall asleep. He was tired, he wasn't hungry. Think about that, that sometimes that gosh, I want to eat something, but I don't know what I want to eat, that kind of thing. Try drinking some water, because often it's a thirst mechanism that you don't recognize, and then you go, oh, that's why I was thirsty. Okay, so that was the water. And then comes the salt. restricted salt diets are not helpful. What about potassium? Oh, for heaven's sakes, get enough potassium and magnesium in your diet. And the way you do that is fresh fruits and vegetables, anything that has water in it, like spinach is like mostly water, right? Celery is mostly water. There's a lot of potassium in that. People juice celery, for example. In a 16-ounce juice, you have 1,200 milligrams of potassium. That's a lot. You think of like a whole baked potato, a big baked potato is 900. An avocado is like 800. Everybody says, oh, you got to eat bananas for potassium. Well, a banana is like 350. It's less than an avocado. But for every ounce for ounce or gram for gram, the banana has more potassium, but you get 300 milligrams of potassium in an apple or an orange too. So those are all good sources of potassium. Anything that has water in it, that's mostly water, has a lot of potassium. And then magnesium comes in anything that grows. So any kinds of seeds, including grains like wheat and corn and rice and all that. But if it can't grow, it probably doesn't have magnesium. So if you take white rice, for example, that's not going to grow a plant. So there's no magnesium in that. If you take wheat, if you have white flour, then the magnesium's been taken out of that too. So anything that grows, seeds, beans, peas, lentils, all that stuff, and then anything green, the color green is magnesium. That's what makes the color green. Just like iron makes the blood red, magnesium makes the plants green. So the darker the green, the more magnesium. So those are ways to keep yourself hydrated. And you know what? Your kidneys are really good at maintaining hydration. You don't have to worry about it all yourself. That's not, you don't have to externally control that. You just have to get enough of everything. And if you get enough potassium, then your sodium can balance very nicely. If you're not getting enough potassium, then you don't get good sodium balance. And that's where a lot of the issues come in.
Very interesting. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. We'd love to answer those today. Sib says, what is the best daily form or type of magnesium for someone in post-menopause?
Oh, yeah, there's so many types of magnesium. And the fact is they're all absorbed. And they'll tell you that, oh, this one is chelated. It's absorbed better than that one. And yeah, that's true. But you just take more of the other one and it's cheaper. So, so get the cheaper one. 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate or something is really good.
We also have the Barton magnesium as well, which is the spray. So you can check that out. That's at bartonnutrition.com. Use code webinar25. You'll save 25% there. I really like that magnesium too. Anonymous said, is there a reason that my mouth is always dry?
Yes, there is a reason your mouth is always dry, and there's several possibilities. There's something called Sjogren's syndrome, which can affect your salivary glands, or there's other reasons. Sialadenitis, it's called. Any salivary gland problem can give you dry mouth, and that's an issue. Or if you are dehydrated, either lack of salt, lack of sodium, lack of potassium, lack of water, and any one of them could give you dry mouth, dry eyes. Yeah. So.
What about medications?
On medications. Oh, yes. Thank you. There's a lot of medications that cause dry mouth. Most of the antidepressants cause dry mouth. Some people take allergy medications that cause dry mouth. Some people are on chronic medications for bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. They cause dry mouth. Look at the medication you're taking. If you're taking any, then that's a big one. Thank you, Cheryl.
What do you do then?
So from my point of view, when people come in on a medication and they're having a side effect from the medication, then I say, okay, let's see if we can switch your medication or get you off that medication. It's not always possible, but most of the time I think it is. Otherwise, they do make some like lozenges that you can suck on that stimulate the production of saliva that can be somewhat useful. Because it's kind of important, you know, if you don't have saliva, then your teeth will rot out of your mouth, and it causes other problems too.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to comment. Someone said, oh, I can't get that to move. My mom never believes me when I say that water can actually stop that sweet cravings or random hunger, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. And then
Can I ask about electrolytes? That's such a big thing these days. Don't leave home without your electrolytes, or if you have water, make sure your electrolytes is in them. What is your opinion about electrolytes? Good because it's got the magnesium, potassium, or too much, or whatever?
Oh, generally good. I think it's okay. The issue that I have with most of those electrolyte solutions, and they come in little packets that you sprinkle in your water or put in your water, is that they have sweeteners in them, usually artificial sweeteners. And there are so many people that have type 2 diabetes that have excessive amounts of insulin. And when they're drinking this water all day long with the electrolytes, which is fine as far as the electrolytes go. But because of the sweetener in there, they're releasing insulin all day long, and that'll make them insulin resistant or create a worse problem. So if you get the electrolytes that don't have any flavoring or any sweetener, and the simple one is like sea salt, you know, a pinch of sea salt in your water will give you electrolytes. But you know what? You get electrolytes from your food anyway. So.
right. Okay, so we have some questions, I think primarily about type 2 diabetes. So I'm going to ask those now. Richard says, I'm in phase one. That is phase one of our diabetes solution kit. So if you're not familiar with that, know that that's available at bartonnutrition.com, or you can go to bartonwebinar.com. I'm in phase one, and I think that I'm in ketosis because everything tastes sour, metallic, and basically disgusting. Blood sugar is still between 100 and 110. Is there a way to know that I've overcome insulin resistance? I'd really like to go, but I'd really like to go be to a low carb, less than 40 per meal. Is that ever going to be possible?
Of course, yes, it will be possible. Okay, so your first question is, how do I know when I don't have insulin resistance anymore? Well, if you're fasting, blood glucose is between 70 and 90. It's very unlikely that you have insulin resistance. So that's a good way of knowing. Another way of, if you want to test it, you can actually do a 3-hour glucose tolerance test and see what your blood sugar does. That would be a blood test that you could do. And then your second question is, am I ever going to be able to eat like reasonably again, get off this keto diet? Yes, you're probably in ketosis. It does change the way things taste because ketones have a flavor, they have a smell. And because of that, that constant ketone smell, it changes the way everything else tastes and smells too. So that a lot of people have complained about that. But will you ever be able to? Yes. When your insulin is normal, when you don't have insulin resistance, when everything is back to normal, then you can eat normally again. And just keeping in mind the fact that you've had type 2 diabetes and now you don't have type 2 diabetes, and you don't want to go back into that problem. So periodically going off carbs is one way of doing it. Some people just maintain a mostly ketogenic diet for the rest of their lives. Other people like the carbs and want to go back to a normal diet. And normal means I get to eat all the carbs and the potatoes and rice and corn and that I want. So yes, that's possible, but consider that periodically you're going to be going into like a keto diet.
Okay. Anonymous said, my wife isn't diabetic, but has been on phase 1. Why isn't she losing weight? We'd have to ask her some questions. Just kidding. Go ahead, Dr. Saunders.
Yeah. So, okay. So, phase 1 of a ketogenic diet is not necessarily to lose weight. It's really not a weight loss diet. We don't measure calories or anything. You can maintain weight pretty well with a keto diet. Phase 1 is not meant specifically to lose weight. It's to help you burn fat for energy. So if you're eating fat, then you get to use that for energy. And you can still store fat and you still make insulin. You're still eating 20 grams of carbohydrates a day or less. So the purpose for the diet is not to lose weight. The purpose for the diet is to decrease insulin resistance. And it does that pretty well.
Yeah. You can eat a lot of zero carb foods too. And we can overeat in a lot of different areas too, I think. But also, there are a lot of other things that can keep you from losing weight. We've had people say stress, for example. If there's a lot of stress going on, they're not able to release weight very well. So all sorts of things that we hear from people. Terry says, I have had cancer. My last report showed there was no cancer, although I have been losing weight. I cannot stay on the low carb diet as I need to gain weight. What do you propose?
Well, that's perfect for the last one. You can stay on a low carb diet and maintain your weight. It's just eating more would be okay, but maintain your muscle mass by working out, getting a higher protein in your diet, and you can maintain your weight, especially your muscle mass, really well by doing that.
All right. Let me just see here. And also, it depends on if you're talking about like phase 1. I mean, you can move to phase 2 where you're adding in more food, trying some other things. And there's a phase 3, maybe progressing there. But I think they probably want to manage their blood sugar and keep the weight up. So yeah, definitely just increase the food and stuff. Allison said, my 20-year-old grandson was just diagnosed with celiac disease. Any advice?
Yes, avoid gluten. If you have celiac disease, you just need to avoid gluten. And it's kind of odd that I've had people who've gone outside the country, one of my patients went to Germany for like a while, for months, and was able to eat bread and drink beer in Germany, but came back to the United States and was not,
Wow.
still had a gluten reaction in the US. And I had somebody else who went to Peru and stayed with her family for 6 months and was eating bread and all kinds of things, came back to the United States and started reacting to gluten again. So, yeah, you can have, it might be just a certain type of gluten, or it might not be gluten at all. It might be something else. Like almost all the wheat in the United States has glyphosate on it, which a lot of people react to, which is an herbicide that a lot of people react to. So there might be other reasons, but other than that, the only advice I have is avoid gluten, because you need to repair your intestines so that you can absorb nutrients properly.
Yeah.
Denise says, I don't know if it's true. Flour in US has grass in it. Other flours elsewhere are true wheat plus herbicides as well. I don't know if that's grass.
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
I have
Um,
two relatives who have celiac disease. It runs in their family. And at Christmas, they both ate from a table that was supposed to be gluten-free and it wasn't.
mm,
And they were both fine. But they hadn't eaten gluten in years. And so it prompted them to think maybe their body's healing.
wow.
So they're not, one of them's not going to try. The other one is probably going to try this year to try to generally add it back. But they didn't have a reaction when they tried after years of not having it. But
That's
Wow.
interesting. You know
yeah.
that in Italy they did a study on that where they had people who had celiac disease, and they took them off all gluten and they healed, and they did endoscopes to make sure they were fully healed. And then half of them they let eat sourdough bread, and the other half ate regular bread. And the ones that ate sourdough bread mostly did not get their celiac disease back, with whereas the ones that ate the regular bread, most of them did get their celiac disease back.
Wow.
And so that was a long time ago, and their theory was that it wasn't the gluten, it was the yeast that was causing the problem.
Wow.
It turns out it's not the yeast, it is the gluten, but there may be something in the sourdough, um, the the bacteria produce acids that might break down gluten somewhat and allow it to be digested more easily.
Another just simple recommendation that I would just say if you're trying to go for anyone really who's going on a gluten-free journey, it's real easy to go get the prepackaged gluten-free things. And I would just say, yeah, those can be a special treat, but remember that's not not healthy just because it's gluten-free. So all the real foods in life are gluten-free. So, anything that's grown in the ground or on the
Yeah,
trees or whatever,
yeah,
meat, they're all gluten-free. So enjoy real food
yeah.
and and try not to go just to the gluten-free aisle at the grocery store with all the prepackaged stuff. That would be my recommendation.
Good.
Um, Mary said, what is the nutritional difference between sea salt and just plain table salt?
Um, Sea salt has possibly more minerals in it, but trace amounts of minerals. It's plain table salt. They heat it to like 4,000 degrees, and they just like burn everything off. And so all that's left is
And what
just
is it?
sodium chloride.
Yeah.
And so the plain table salt is um, more processed. And so the sea salt has more different minerals in it, and a little bit of magnesium, for example, a little bit of potassium, a little bit of iodine, a little bit of other minerals.
Okay.
Very tiny amounts, by the way. It's not like that's going to be your source.
Yeah. Okay. Anonymous said I had kidney surgery in December of 2024, developed insulin resistance, tried 16 hours intermittent fasting and low carb, lost weight and muscle. How can I gain weight safely and not insulin resistant again?
Okay, that is very interesting. So people who are on some borderline of insulin resistance, and they have a stressor of some kind. Surgery is a big stress on the body, and that stress causes them to make a bunch of cortisol. Cortisol makes them insulin resistant. All of a sudden, they're just over the edge into the insulin resistance diabetes thing. So, a couple of things to think about. One would be the stress itself. Consider that these high stressors are going to tend to make you more insulin resistant. Women during pregnancy often have that issue. If they're borderline on insulin resistance, and then during pregnancy they get insulin resistant, they get diabetes of pregnancy has been recognized for years. But why is that? Well, the stress of pregnancy causes more insulin resistance than you would have when you're not pregnant. Those kinds of things. And how would you gain weight safely and not get insulin resistant again is to gain muscle. It's to exercise. Exercising builds muscle. So you can eat protein and exercise and then and not eat a lot of carbs. So people say, well, I have to gain weight, so I have to eat a bunch of carbohydrates. What are you going to get? Fat. You're going to get fat. That's not what you want to gain. You want to gain muscle. So working out, exercising, getting enough protein in your diet so that you can build muscle would be a much better way to do that.
All right. Lily said, can astigmatism be improved or healed?
Um, um, I don't know. Yeah, there are websites about that. I've read things that people have said that it's possible, but your eyes change over time somewhat. But I don't know. I don't know if there's a specific exercise. There's eye exercises you can do, like for myopia, where you can, or hyperopia. Where you have near vision or far vision, but I don't know about astigmatism. I don't know if there's anything that can do that.
Okay. Gail says, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and in one they said, depending on what your GP1 and GP is, what causes you not to lose weight, because your insulin resistance is what's causing the problem. Could that be true? GLP-1?
But I was
Yeah.
thinking GLP-1,
Yeah, GLP-1. Okay. Yeah.
GLP-1 is a really big, I hear that people are talking about it a lot. And any thoughts or anything you can share on that?
Yeah, the glucagon-like polypeptide and then the glucagon. Yeah, those have a lot to do with your weight. This idea of metabolism. What is the problem? And there's so many factors that are involved in metabolism and using or making energy from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. That there's no simple answer to that. It seems like insulin is the problem ultimately, because if you have high insulin, then it's going to block you from using fat for energy. So you have less energy. You're going to store more fat, and you're going to have all of the problems, the heart problems, the brain problems, the kidney problems from having too much insulin. On the other hand, it's not. The glucagon is also a factor that's involved in that, because the glucagon tells your liver to start making glucose, and so you start dumping glucose in. And if you block that, then you don't make glucose when you're making glucagon. So could it be true that the insulin resistance is what's causing the problem? Yeah, insulin resistance is the problem. And so I think that's why people gain weight. And so the glucagon-like polypeptides, what they do, the peptides stop you from eating. They don't let your stomach empty very well. So they slow down gastric emptying. So you go, I'm not hungry. And you eat less. So losing weight on those injections is really just eating less. That's all it is. And so I had a patient who was very obese, like 300 pounds, and she wanted to get a stomach bypass surgery. So she came in for her pre-op for her gastric bypass. And during the pre-op, I explained the procedure to her. I told her what it was. The surgeon hadn't done that. And I said, and so what you end up with is a stomach that's about 50 cc's, and that's all you can eat, just that much, and half a cup. That's all you can eat. And if you try to eat more than that, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be throwing up and all that. And so I didn't see her for a long time. I did it. I sent to the surgeon and everything. And she came back a long time. It was months and months later. And I didn't recognize her. And she said, "Don't you recognize it?" I said, "No." She said, "That's because I lost over 100 pounds." I'm like, "Oh, really?" uh, so I said, "Well, so it worked." She goes, "No, I never had the surgery." I'm like, "Well, what did you do?" She said, "Well, I went home and I thought, I really hate the idea of having this surgery." I'm like, "They're going to cut me. I don't want to go through all of that. If if all I have to do is just eat a half a cup at every meal, and that's what it's going to force me to do, why don't I just eat a half a cup at every meal?" And that's what she did. So for months and months, she ate a half a cup at every meal, and she lost over 100 pounds, and she never had the surgery. So it's kind of like that with the GLP-1, the Wegovy, and all those shots. Is that if you just eat less, that's the same thing the shot does anyway.
Okay.
Can you increase GLP-1 naturally?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
That's the next topic.
Yeah, there's a lot of products out there,
Yeah,
the
there are a
research
lot of
telling.
topics out there.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things that you can take, like pills. They say, "Oh, this causes you to make more GLP-1." I don't know.
All right. Well, cheaper way. Get out your measuring cup. I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, eating less.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? All
Hey,
right.
guess that fasting would be included in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old fasting. You bet. Okay. Let me see here. Anonymous said, how long does it take on a keto diet to get your blood sugar fasting at 100 or below? I've been on the program for 10 weeks and my fasting is still 140 to 150. Fasting insulin is 7.5 and C-peptide is 1.9. Still take metformin. Not sure I can beat this or not, to be honest. Seems like blood sugar has gotten worse since the weather has gotten hotter in Ohio. Male, age 76, and do exercise and BWI. I wonder if that's BMI of 24.
Yeah, BMI of 24. Well, that's not bad. BMI of 24 and C-peptide 1.9 and insulin 7.5. Those are pretty normal levels. So you don't have an excessive amount of insulin. And the fasting blood glucose 140 to 150, that is definitely high. And so the question, I guess, there is why? Why, if you're doing a keto diet, I wonder if you're measuring ketones. Because if you're actually using fat for energy and making ketones, then your body will use ketones for energy, and your glucagon won't be putting out extra blood sugar in the morning so that your morning levels go up, the dawn effect that we often talk about. So I wonder if that would help. Another thing that might help a lot is to just do 2 or 3 days of drinking water only. Now, you may have to try like 24 hours and see how you do on that, and then try a couple days. But if you're in ketosis, then you probably won't notice anything. You wouldn't get hypoglycemia unless you have an excessive amount of glycogen. So I think there's a couple of things to try. One is to start testing to see if you're in ketosis and you're actually making ketones. Because if not, then you want to remove more carbs out until you actually make ketones, and that would make a big difference. And another way to just start that process is to go 2 or 3 days with water only, and that starts ketosis. And remember to exercise while you're doing that, because that way you won't lose muscle. Several people have mentioned that they lost muscle when they were fasting. And that happens if you don't use your muscles. So it's kind of important to do that.
Norman said, just wanted to let you know I finally got my full blood test. My A1C is now at 5.5, was 6.3, and lost over 60 pounds. Thanks to you and your team with your program, I eat better, sleep better, exercise every day, off of blood pressure pills. Thank you so much.
Wow, good work. Yay.
That is awesome.
That is. I love it. I love hearing that.
So good. And yeah, you did it. You did the work. It's awesome. Okay. Cynthia had said, what is worse for high blood pressure, sea salt or regular salt?
Oh, you know, there is neither one for high blood pressure. That's not an issue. So the key for high blood pressure is some people are salt sensitive, but it's pretty rare. So it's rarely a salt problem. Most of the time, what you got to look at is why is your blood pressure elevated? Sometimes it's because the brain isn't getting enough blood flow. Sometimes it's because the heart isn't working right. Sometimes it's an adrenal problem, a kidney problem. So look for the cause of high blood pressure first. It's so common for human beings. It's all over the place. Everybody does this. They start treating before they even have a diagnosis. You got a symptom, treat it, you know, but you don't even know the cause of it. So you're treating the wrong thing. So the key here is find out what the problem is and then treat that. And then you won't even have to worry about salt. Salt's just going to be a non-issue.
The next question is a question about coffee. So at first, I'm going to ask, do you feel like coffee dehydrates you, or does that count as a good water?
Okay, I actually looked this up and there was some research in 2014 on this very issue. Is this a real thing? Well, it turns out that the diuresis from the caffeine in coffee. So if you're drinking a regular cup of coffee that has between 90 and 100 milligrams of caffeine, you're going to lose a certain amount of more water than you would normally. But it turns out that it's not nearly the actual cup of coffee that you're drinking gives you more water than you lose from the caffeine. Okay, so if you're drinking espresso where you're getting a very small amount of water with it, then you're probably losing water. You're probably going negative with that. But a regular cup of coffee, you don't. You actually, it's positive. You're adding water.
Okay. Okay, so another question here about coffee. Does it raise your blood pressure? My blood pressure was very elevated 2 weeks ago. I immediately stopped drinking coffee. Only change I made, and my blood pressure went down significantly.
Some people have a big effect from coffee because it does affect the adrenal glands. It does affect the cortisol and epinephrine, norepinephrine, and the ratio between the epinephrine and norepinephrine. So some people have a big effect from coffee. Not everybody does. But yeah, that's entirely possible.
Does caffeine have that effect as well then on your blood pressure?
It can, yes. Not everybody does, but it can.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Sibid said, sorry, I did make another change. I started to incorporate salt in my diet.
Oh, so getting
Oh,
rid of coffee and adding salt dropped your blood pressure. Awesome.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Christine says, how to find the cause, blood tests, what kind of doctor for high blood pressure, cholesterol, lipoprotein A, and trying to avoid issues with A1C, which is okay at the moment, 5.8.
Okay.
And has Graves' disease and so thyroid issues too.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot going on. The A1C 5.8 is actually pre-diabetes. So it's not optimal. Your optimal A1C would be 5.0 up to 5.2. So 5.8 is a lot different. You know, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of numbers in between there, but if you look at just the mortality rate of people with 5.4 to 5.8, just that difference between 5.4 and 5.8 doubles your risk of mortality. So it's twice as high. So it is a big deal. So that's something you can work on. That's easy. How to find the cause. Yeah, you need someone with, considering you have high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and lipoprotein A, and prediabetes, Graves' disease, which is also a thyroid issue. I think finding the underlying cause of this, there's probably something in your intestines that is a likely underlying cause. Why? Because with Graves' disease, that's an autoimmune problem, and the autoimmune problems they start in the intestines. So there might be a digestive problem, an absorption problem, and all of those together can cause high blood pressure, cholesterol. Lipoprotein A that's a different issue entirely. That's a genetic issue. But yeah, good. That's something really important to look for. Why?
Right. Let's see. Any other questions over here? Let me see. Denise had said 50 years ago, farmers wanted more yield in the fields, and grass was introduced into the wheat seeds. And now wheat is no longer amber waves of grain in the fields, tall, thick, 30-inch stalks with many, many seed pods on top for more yield. Sib had said there's something to this, as my friend with celiac was able to eat pasta every day for 2 weeks while in Italy, came back to the US and could eat pasta. Denise also said, I make my own flour using wheat berries that has no grass in it, the original wheat. Wheat affects my joints, reasons so many gut issues shortly after the wheat was altered. Read Wheat Belly by Dr. William Stewart explains the wheat issues. I have seen that book. And then Denise also said caffeine and alcohol causes heart to go out of rhythm. All right. Okay, Christine had also said, so Christine was the one who was asking about finding the causes. She said, I have your Healthy Heart book, but not the other book. I'm not sure where to start.
Yeah, okay. The place to start is to test. And so you're going to need help with that. So finding a functional medicine doctor that can help guide you through this process of finding the underlying cause. And the one thing to be wary of and to look for as you're going through your process of finding the cause is to look at if the doctor starts treating without diagnosing. So if you don't know the cause and they start giving you drugs or vitamins or minerals or something for a symptom, then either ask for, can you find the cause, or do you know somebody who can? And then see if you can find somebody who can help you find the underlying cause. Because until you know the cause, then you're just shooting in the dark. You don't know what you're doing until you know why.
Yeah. Okay. But you also can start eating well by following the Healthy Heart Solution Kit. I mean, you're going to eat good foods, real foods. So you can implement that even while you're figuring some things out. Would definitely recommend that. Okay. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders.
Okay.
We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. You too, Cheryl.
Yeah, you too.
And we're thankful that all of you guys are here as well. So come back next week, same time, same place. Head to Barton.